Hey, everybody. Welcome to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and a publisher at Autonomy Global. It is Defense Tech Month, everybody, and what a month it has been. In fact, I'm sitting here in Tampa, Florida for Special Ops Forces Week, hence the hotel background. And we've got two amazing guests that are dipping their toes very deep into the defense sector, coming to us from North Dakota right now. Good friend of the show, Ned Tabat, who is with Meadowlark Aircraft Company, and Kirill Rivkin. And Kirill, tell me your company's name again.
This is Aeronautic.
Okay, beautiful. So these two have partnered up and they are making some very interesting drones. And we're going to talk about that today. But before we do, what I first want to do is, number one, acknowledge Volatus Aerospace for sponsoring this month. And number two, have each of you introduce yourself. Now, Ned, you're a great friend of the show. You've been on before. But for those that don't know you, can you tell a little bit about your personal background?
Oh, of course. I am the product of state of Illinois educational system all the way through PhD, and have been working. That was 1984. Hopefully, hasn't expired yet. I have been working in various technology and management roles since then. I started out at Bell Labs. Did a stint at University of Wisconsin-Madison as a professor of electrical engineering for about 10 years, and then Seagate Technology for about 15 years. And then I've been doing various startups, most recently the past couple of years with Meadowlark, getting into the unmanned space right now. So.
Absolutely. And for those that don't know, Ned has been on the show before, and we discussed Meadowlark Aircraft Company previously. So check out that episode. I believe there's an article that also accompanied that. So great background. And we'll talk, of course, more about what direction you're going and how you've evolved over time. But could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I also went to school in Illinois, so Northwestern, PhD in physics, and I worked as a designer in magnetics, optics, and other fields, so I have very diverse background. In 2022, I started to get seriously involved with drones. And Genesis Aeronautica, we have more than 20 employees right now. We work with fiber optic communications. We work with AI algorithms for signal processing mostly. And we also do a lot of pilot training. So that's one of our main subjects. And my employees and our team members are engineers and pilots, and most of them are veterans.
Amazing. So Kirill, are you also in North Dakota? Is that the home base for your headquarters?
Absolutely. Well, we also have many other locations, and a lot of people are working remotely. So I used to be mostly in California, but now we also have some European places we collaborate with very closely, in Poland mostly.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so Ned, let's talk about Meadowlark here, because the last time we talked, you were building Group 3 UAS, right? Bespoke. And I remember that origin story, and I believe Meadowlark is the state bird of North Dakota, if I recall correctly. So tell us basically, since we last talked, what has happened at Meadowlark? How have you guys, kind of evolved over time?
So last time we talked was, I think, in August. The Rule 108 proposed ruling had just come out, and there was a lot of excitement. We were going to be able to do Group 3. We were going to be able to do BB-LOS and all of those things. But as I'm sure you're very well aware, it's still probably 8 months away. And it's not going to be a digital transition. It's probably just going to be an analog version of that. It will be a slow transition. So while we were gearing up to meet that demand, we were kind of sitting on our hands. And with the preponderance of applications now from a defense perspective, we have decided to come down to Group 1 and what we will talk about today is a number of companies that we're teaming up with to very, very quickly get into the capability of building very large numbers. So for Group 3, we were hoping to grow over several years to 600 aircraft surveillance and cargo a year production. Here you have to do several thousand a month just to be viable. And so that's a different scale of production. But of course, you know, the aircrafts are smaller, margins are a lot lower, but many of the volume manufacturing concerns that I don't know to what extent we get to talk about today are front and center when it comes to getting to those kinds of volumes and bringing the prices down to then they become acceptable for example, loitering munitions, these types of, some people call them kamikaze drones or one-way attack drones, where you essentially are replacing an artillery shell with a guided drone. So that has to be on that scale of cost. So, and the production volume to go with it. The industry is still going to be capacity limited, particularly when it comes to NDAA compliant parts. And so we want to make sure that we eliminate any scraps. We manage to bring the production cost down through design for manufacturing, getting everything properly set up, Six Sigma implemented so that we can get to these large volumes. So that's the focus has now shifted to, again, the volume that's 20 to 30 times what we had expected to get to in Group 3, and also obviously the margins that are quite slim in this business. I do want to add one more thing, which we always talked about in Group 3. If you maintain something around 15% of market share, you can stay independent. I don't know what that number is when it comes to these things. So we will start out and see where we go, and we might sell off this portion or do something different with it. Again, I really don't know where the sweet spot of the scaling of this technology is, but we are, I think, with Genesis' help and some of the other companies that we'll talk about, at a point where I think we have a very unique solution that would give us a competitive advantage, at least for a while.
Okay, so just to kind of summarize, it sounds like you know, you were gearing up for this Group 3 production, you know, waiting with bated breath on Part 108, like so many others, you know, that would enable those kind of missions, at least domestically. And, you know, of course, watching what's happening around the world, seeing things like drone dominance, executive orders rolling out, seeing what continues to happen in the battlefield, you know, in Ukraine, and then these calls for one-way attritable drones at scale. I mean, does that basically summarize, like, you know, kind of the, I'll call it a pivot a little bit in terms of what you're looking to do?
Yeah, a major pivot for us, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So Kirill, tell me about your company. I know Genesis Aeronautical, you bring together hardware engineering, as you said, software development, AI, plus firsthand battle experience. What gaps were you trying to fill when you co-founded that company?
Well, first and foremost, I thought on the design side, there are two things that I find strange that we still do not have a good solution for. And first and foremost, that's fiber optics communications, because I'm a strong believer that it's going to stay and it's going to be a significant portion of all, at least quadcopter, hexacopter drones that are especially those used on the battlefield, but also used in civilian life as well for the whole range of missions. And we're going to talk about that. Second problem is that if using computer analogs, we are still in 1970s, where if you take parts and you want to build a computer, you have to get used to the fact that the parts are not going to work together, and you will have to write the software yourself. And it doesn't have to be this way. We really are looking for plug and play solutions for the ecosystem where when you buy a drone, you don't buy a drone because of its camera or because of its gimbal. You're buying it as a platform. And
Right.
then on this platform, you're going to build whatever you want. And third gap is education. And that's, we are the only company in the world that can teach you to fly FPV, or stabilized, non-stabilized modes under any kind of conditions and do it completely remotely. So you can become a pilot from the comfort of your home. You're going to get good latency, and you're not only going to be a pilot, you're going to be also an engineer who knows how to repair drones, how to build drones, and you're going to be also a mission commander, because one of the things that we teach, and I don't see a lot of people being capable of this kind of skill, is when you take a map, you should immediately understand where on this map you can apply, for example, RF communications, where you should be applying fiber communications, and where you should really go satellite, and how each of these routes are going to be vulnerable to cyber attacks, what are the considerations, and so on and so on. So this kind of a mission planning expertise is something that I think is severely lacking today in the workforce and overall in the drone community.
Well, that you raise a great point, because, I think some people come into this thinking they can just take a drone out of a box and just put it up in the air and they should be good to go. But it's really not that simple. And Kirill, I want to ask you specifically, you've mentioned a couple times, kind of the battlefield experience. I mean, you mentioned also that you have, a presence in Poland. I assume that some of that experience is in the Ukraine theater. So my understanding, and of course now you're looking at the fiber optics, right? You're looking at one way, FPV drones. Those things are all, just kind of have risen to a whole different level, I think, in terms of strategy on the battlefields right now. Is that kind of where that you and some of your teammates have gained this experience? And if so, what's like the biggest thing you've learned that now you're applying in your collaboration with Meadowlark and with Ned?
Well, the answer is yes, and there are of course so many stories, and you
Yeah.
spend 3 months at the front, you have stories for the rest of your life. The problem is that after you tell them a couple of times, people don't invite you back. So I don't know how many you want to hear.
We probably don't have a ton of time because I know you guys have some cool videos and things we want to get to as well. But yeah, at least give me one story that maybe kind of shaped your thinking and informs a little bit of the collaboration that you have with Ned and with Meadowlark right now.
And I think my biggest learning is the absolute conviction that drones are going to replace most of ammunition or whatever is going to be used. That's really replacement technology. That's really a new phase of the war. And I know a lot of people who they're not saying this directly. They're saying, but they kind of feel okay. They looked at what happens out there, and they're saying, okay, we see two armies that are really unprepared, that are poorly led. They don't really know what they're doing, and so on and so on. Why we should learn from this conflict? It's just a mess. And the reason is that the drones appear to be a solution, their solution. And I'll give an example. I constantly talk to stormtroopers and I ask them the same question. So, what do you do against drones? You have a team in the field. What do you do against drones? And they're going to say, okay, first you have every person carrying a detector. If there's any kind of RF communication with a drone, at least you know that the drones are in the area. So
Yep.
a third of the people are supposed to carry buckshot, hunting rifles, whatever, because buckshot is about 10 times more efficient against drones than your regular rifle. And third thing, of course, it helps if some people in your team are really fat. because in the end, you're going to be riding away, and those guys are going to be drone magnets.
Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, that's horrible. It's like,
Uh,
as long as I can run faster than you, I'm good. But no, it's like actually, Kirill, like really no joke. We just had Olga Pagoda from Blue Arrow. This company is kind of a foot in Ukraine and Kiev and one in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We just did a worldwide release of their command and control. One the many called RII, which means swarm in Ukrainian. And she actually said that, like, the reason why you need this kind of C2 is because they're targeting pilots, and it's such a dangerous position to have out there right now. You don't want to be anywhere near the battlefield. So if you can remotely orchestrate multiple drones at one time and different kinds of drones, and that's what they do, that's what they bring to the table. So you're joking, but your point is well taken, quite frankly. So all of these things, right, that you're talking about, tell me how this partnership was kind of formed, because Kirill, you're over here doing your thing, and Ned, you were looking at group 3, and you realized, wait a minute, the environment has changed. I got to like move with that environment. Like, how did you two actually come to forge an alliance?
So we go back 20 plus years. And so actually, when Kirill came out of Northwestern with his PhD, I hired him at Seagate. And so we were long time friends. And he just happened to be in North Dakota last October at the UAS Summit. And we started chatting, and he gave a couple of talks over at our place, and we kind of fell in love with this idea of fiber optic. We see an opportunity, and we'll talk more about it when we show the videos, but the opportunity to, again, have a drone that cannot be jammed, has a very low latency in terms of flight operations, so you can be flowing through woods and close to the ground and all those kinds of things. And we'll show a use case that's really exceptional for this particular type of attack drones in a separate video, the second video that we have. But so it all got started last October. We started talking, we talked about, and then of course, right about the same time, the drone dominance program was coming out. And it became very, very clear that managing supply chain is going to be very important if you are going to get a low cost, high volume product out that is NDAA compatible. And so you can't depend on Chinese fiber, or motors or anything like that. So you have to actually get all of that lined up. So we started talking about kind of bringing in other subsystem and component providers, and then designing the system around that. We started out with the design that Genesis had, and I think this might be a good time to actually show the first slide, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's show that consortium. So it's not just the two of your companies. You've pulled together an entire ecosystem to achieve your goal here of one-way attack, treatable drones. So tell us about these other partners.
Yeah, so we're not quite at the end. The entire isn't quite there yet, but we're working towards that. So if we can show that slide, the first picture.
So we have the picture with the logos up, and now we have one with the
I didn't see
fiber-optic
it.
cable.
Okay, so no, the logo, please. Yes, that
Yep.
somehow is not showing up on our.
That's okay. I think the audience can see it.
I
That's
know
what
it
matters. So we've got Vespa Alliance, Sakai, Anta, and Aero Gear, in addition to your two companies on that
So
slide.
we've called it the Vespa Alliance, which is like a wasp in Latin, and these are for one-way attack drones. And a lot of this actually was also in working with Jim Falasco of Aero Gear, who's also very much pushing this idea of connecting smaller companies to try to get them to kind of work together as a unit. And for imaging, we've worked very, very closely with Sakai Electronics, Roland Suhu and his team there in California. And we look forward to, obviously, for a first-person view, day-night, all-weather operation, the imaging part is critical. And so that is a very, very critical subsystem that we're working with them, but also bringing that price down, particularly for long wavelength infrared imaging. And then I'm also working with a brand new working relationship starting out with a PC manufacturer and mechanical and component manufacturer. And so right now there are 5 of us. We're looking for other subsystem providers. I think fiber would be important if somebody out there that wants to work with us on the fiber side. We do have a transceiver, but we still could use the spooling and all of that. Certainly motors always going to be critical, batteries and such. We would certainly entertain adding to this consortium of companies that band together to get high volume, but unfortunately end up being a very low margin, but high volume product, just to exercise this transition to building the manufacturing capacity here in the US.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ned, when we get off the show, I'll share with you a company that had the only fiber optic, and maybe there were others on the floor. I mean, I buzzed a lot of floor space yesterday. And this one company had, the spools of fiber optics. Now they are making drones as well, so I don't know, but I'll talk to you offline. I think there could be a collaboration maybe. But let's I think we have a first video, right? I think now's a good time. We talked about the background, we talked about the partnerships that have come together for this. And now let's take a look at these drones. So if we could roll that video, and then Kirill or Ned, if you could walk us through what we're seeing here.
Okay. So what you're seeing is that we come from a design which is a very typical frontline design from 2025 to something that is completely different. It's optimized in many ways. It's a large platform. It is intended for 20+ kilometer range. And it has fiber communication module, but it's also an open ecosystem. So it's intended as a platform where you can take different cameras, different communication modules, LiDAR, and other equipment, and install it on the fly, and it's going to work. And what it gives you in a defense space is ability to do multi-mission. You have one platform which you reconfigure in the field for your specific purposes. So it can be recon, and this is a relatively long-range recon for a quadcopter or hexacopter. It can be kinetic, it can be mixed recon and bomber, it can be supply delivery, and all of this is not requiring you to have any kind of frontline production. You literally can decide before every mission what exactly do you need.
And I mean, so I don't know the right terminology, so please help me out here. There were 6 propellers or rotors. So, so what is it?
Hexacopter.
Hexacopter.
Okay, hexacopter. And so your vision is that this is going to be first person view, like someone's going to be wearing goggles flying that thing?
Well, our specialty also that you can wear goggles, so you can look at a monitor, or you can be 10,000 miles away. We have all these options, and they all work perfectly fine. You can fly it with goggles as a first-person view. You can fly it in a stabilized mode where you use optic stabilization, or fancier term AI, to basically navigate without GPS. So there's plenty of options. There's plenty of options how to use it. And again, the niche is that it's your main workhorse that is capable to perform almost any kind of mission that quadcopter or hexacopter does on the battlefield.
So I know the fiber optics solution was a creative solution that I believe the Ukrainians came up with when it came to the electronic warfare attacks that are so frequently occurring on the battlefield. I mean, it's just commonplace now, right? It's like you have to be able to survive without GPS, period, dot. So you're focused on, you said, kind of that fiber optic solution. Kirill, can you explain to me, is there like a certain distance, or like, how does it, like, is it literally like tethered, or how does that work? Because you said like you could be very far away, like in some remote ops center controlling these. How does that work with fiber optics?
So I would say that, and I apologize if I'm very direct, and as you could already figure out, say some things that are controversial. I think actually fiber was really not so much about jamming. Yes, there's electronic warfare everywhere, but the main problem is that if you use RF for communications, beyond 5 kilometers, you start having problems with radio shadow. And it manifests that basically you cannot lower your altitude. When you're flying 200 feet away from the ground, your communications are perfect. When you dive into target, you lose your RF signal. And that's actually was the reason why 2022, early 2023, efficiency of FPV drones was 5%. Today, it's 60 to 80%.
Wow.
And yeah, and one of the differences, yes, they figured out that, okay, RF is really great until 5 kilometers. That's really cheap and mass-produced solution. Everything beyond 10 kilometers, you really have to go to fiber, because unless you came up with some very creative solution that will look good for very specific battlefield, fiber is the only option that gives you this 10 to 50 kilometer ability to fly up to maybe a few feet off the ground to do ambushes. It works perfect against any kind of countermeasures. For example, today in Ukraine, all major roads, they're all covered with nets. So if you're going to fly from above and just dive in, you're not going to be able to penetrate it with one drone. So with fiber, again, you just look for a gap. You fly close to the ground, you search for a gap, and that's when you make your ambush. Fiber is the only technology that allows you to pre-position the drones. That was another problem. The drones take 10 to 15 minutes to get to where they belong.
Right.
And that's too long. So when you assault a trench, it's too long. When you hunt for targets, it's too long. The target might be already gone. So what you do now is you pre-position. You put drones literally 300 feet away from the likely target, and then you wake them up and use them, and then you wake up another line of drones and you use them, and so on and so on. So there are no this 10 minutes gap between the waves of drones you send against
Yeah,
targets.
maybe we could show the second video that actually.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, because this is the use case you guys were talking about. So let's roll film.
And it's exactly what Kirill was talking about.
Can you explain?
Oh, yeah, so here we show that again, you can pre-position fiber optics drone almost in any case, in any scenario, and then you can use it for observation, and that's good for hours of time, because actually fiber optic communications are very low power compared to RF, so your battery is not going to be dead. And then when you see the target, you engage it. You can engage it from behind, you can go up and engage it from the top. That's all your choices. And that's something that is absolutely unique to fiber technology. And this one of the reasons that if you actually look at Russian technology lineup, again, they go everything below 10 kilometers is predominantly RF, 10 to 50 kilometers is predominantly fiber, and 30 plus kilometers, you see a growing role of fixed wing with satellite communications. So this 10 to 30 kilometer range is absolutely fiber. There's nothing else, there's no solution that compares. There's no solution that is as viable as fiber in this range.
That's really interesting. So again, a part of my ignorance, but when I think about fiber optics, I think about like a spool with a cable on there. And when I just looking at these two videos, like I didn't really see, and maybe it's so transparent, like it's just so small I couldn't with my eye see it. But like how does that work as a practical matter? So it's like kind of tethered, if you will.
If
Okay.
you show the third image, actually there's a cross section or an open skin removed so you can actually see the spool.
That other one.
I think
Yeah.
it's the other one with like a nose cone.
Yeah,
This one. Here we go.
Yeah, it's and that's what scares a lot of people. I know, especially in the U.S. military, because how is this technology viable over 50 kilometers? And the answer is it is. Yes, you have a spool, you are tethered, and surprisingly, it's again when you compare, for example, in urban environment, the RF penetration, which is almost non-existent, versus having tethered cable, you much rather go with cable. Regarding how visible it is, in the right light, it's visible,
Yeah.
but this is 250 micron thick cable, so without the right light, you're never going to detect it. And when we test those things, we use more kind of construction ready fiber. There you can see that you kind of have this thick thingy, but everything combat ready. It's impossible to detect. And that goes back to Stormtrooper experience. So the next question I ask them always, okay, so you have these RF detectors that tell you that the drones are in the area. So
Yeah.
what happens if you are facing a fiber drone? And the answer I'm getting every single time is basically we are screwed.
Mm.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing. You are going to pay. That's it.
So that
Yeah.
conical section you saw in the back, that's where the spool is. And for us, it's actually integrated into the fuselage, into the body of the aircraft. And then you saw a section of the fiber. That's actually the anchoring section to the ground station. The fiber itself is a lot thinner than that. You wouldn't even see it in that picture with the white background.
Yeah, almost like a fishing line.
It is thinner than a fishing line, yes.
Wow. Okay. Very, very interesting. All right, very good. So this is really this is very interesting. So Ned, your goal that now as part of this collaboration, obviously amongst other things, is to mass produce these drones. So tell us about what that looks like. How are you preparing for this?
Well, the first step is to make sure that you have a secure supply chain. And again, because this industry is coming of age and demands are uncertain. So what you want to do is make sure that you're working with suppliers that are capable of what we call um, uh, demand elasticity, that you can actually grow production or adjust production as needed to flatten the revenue curve for these kinds of contracts as they come in. But you have to have the capacity to increase production on a moment's notice, so you can't leave behind any potential revenue because again the margins are so thin on these. But
Right.
then there are other issues like having a proper manufacturing requirements plan or enterprise resource plan. All of those things. Ideally, if you're working with partners that are very, very closely associated with you, you use the same ERP system so you can easily move inventory back and forth. Again, managing inventory velocity is a really critical thing to get these things to turn over. So bringing in modern manufacturing capabilities, volume manufacturing capabilities into what's going to be a distributed production facility between multiple companies. And so trying to coordinate that and make sure that we squeeze every inefficiency out of the system so we can actually produce these aircrafts in a distributed way, in such a way that we can still manage to meet these very, very aggressive pricing that I think are going to be associated with this one-way attack drones.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look, I'm here at Tampa. It's soft week, like I mentioned, walking the floor. You know, and we just had a live stream yesterday, sponsored by Victus Technologies, where, you know, I asked about 10 different companies what were their impressions. And, you know, basically autonomy, right? It's a thing. It's not something people are talking about. It's something people are doing now. And, you know, of course, if you don't have AI already built in, you're behind the curve. Because before it was like, all right, all these AI companies. Now it's like, there's very few like standalone AI companies that are already embedded in everything. Okay, that's kind of where we are. And then drones everywhere. Yeah, it's Tampa. There's, you know, water here. There's UUVs, maritime, right? Quite a bit here as well. But overwhelmingly, the floor was packed with drones. And so, you know, people are moving out, and obviously you guys are working also on this. You know, in terms of timelines and milestones, what's on the whiteboard? In other words, you know, kind of what can we expect from this team, you know, in the coming months? What are your goals, you know, by the end of the year, or even before Gauntlet? I think the Gauntlet phase 2 is like in August, and I don't know if they're accepting applications now, but where
Well,
do
I
you
think
where do
that
you both
that window
see this
closed.
going?
Yeah, the drone dominance phase 2 gauntlet closed. Their price at this point for us would have been too aggressive, and they wanted either $3,500 or $4,500 aircraft. And with the fiber, given all the capabilities you get, comes with it some additional cost. It's somewhat larger aircraft because it has to carry that spool, and it has additional electronics. But then again, you get, you know, 3 millisecond latency bidirectional communication, so you can actually fly it without with human in the chain. So you can, if you have to, again, I think our doctrine still is that they have to have human in the kill chain. So you do get a lot of those that you wouldn't get simply with AI. But so our goal is to start getting the manufacturing all figured out. So design is locked down now. Get some of our subsystem providers to kind of look at what the volume would look like and get that done. I know FBI is looking for some fiber drones soon, law enforcement in general. And so we probably start there until we get to a point where we would be more comfortable to bring it into these very aggressive pricing targets that Drone Dominance has. Or perhaps they would have exceptions for, again, something. I mean, if you have to launch 3 drones that take 20 minutes to get there to hit a target, why one pre-positioned drone can cover multiple areas, well, you can make the argument. So that may be a different program, maybe a adjacency to the drone dominance program. But I suspect that at least for the next couple of years, the pricing is going to be probably twice of what the Department of War is envisioning right now for these attack drones. So, and I say that knowing what the European theater costs are, and they're no less than that. So I think we'll be very competitive with Ukrainian drones, produced even in the volume here, but still not quite at $3,500 that the target is. So we'll see what the phase 3 would look like on drone dominance, but maybe there will be adjacencies that we could convince people of that. And also, again, fiber extends your range. You don't need an antenna. You don't need a repeater. You can get to 35 kilometers. And so maybe there would be the next extended range where you can follow a nap of the Earth, not worry about the curvature of the Earth, not worry about having an antenna sticking up to tell everybody where your pilot's at, those kinds of things. And so we do see, Kirill said, we do see a role for fiber for quite some time, if not forever and always.
Well, you know, look, absolutely, drone dominance isn't the only game in town. I mean, right across town there, Ned, you've got, Tom Sawyer and Grand Sky, and we had Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lineberry from the Department of War's Raptor program and the T-Rex, essentially testing exercises, if you will, that are going to be coming, it sounds like this year, maybe even to North Dakota. So if you didn't see that show, Ned, you should watch it, because Lineberry basically said, if you've got a good idea, give us a call, right? So this is Department of War level, but every single service is looking for solutions that are less than the exquisite solutions that have historically been programs of record, right? So a lot of opportunities out there, I believe. So definitely an interesting sweet spot you guys are targeting. Kirill, for beyond this particular collaboration, we're getting close to the end of the show, by the way. What else do you have on the roadmap or on the horizon for your company, Genesis Aeronautical?
Well, we definitely hope that our training program will be more and more in demand, because we actually can train people to fly with fiber. It's not that difficult, but it does require some special skills. I think there's going to be a lot of reckoning and understanding what it means to have AI for drones. And I have very conservative view that we really need to focus on specific AI technologies, and we are trying to focus on optical stabilization, because that's a technology that allows you to navigate without GPS with 1% precision in most environments. We focus on signal processing using generative AI. So again, AI, but very specific technologies that are tied to very specific missions and making them successful.
All right, very good. So basically, you're also open for business to collaborate with others that need either training, it sounds like, or these specific, let's call them technologies like targeted AI and things like that into their own platforms. And Ned, for you, as you're building these now these FPV drones, you've got the Group 3s kind of on the shelf, but like still in your sites. Are you also still, if you will, open for business for companies that want to use your facilities for white glove manufacturing production here in the United States?
Absolutely. The white label, sure.
White label.
Yes.
White glove, yeah.
That sounds like a restaurant service.
You're right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely able to, again, for carbon fiber type fuselage builds, absolutely. I do want to mention before we end here that we'll be at the Farnborough Air Show in the UK in July, trying to reach out to the European market as well. If anybody's watching from overseas, come see us there. And Kirill will be there as well, and we can talk to you about that. I think you will see better adoption of fiber in Europe, or at least ahead of the US. And then going beyond what Kirill said about 35 to 50 kilometers, going to a fixed wing. Now we're talking Group 2, larger payload, but still trying to find solutions. Then there's not a fiber solution there, but we would try to find solutions again with AI to do target acquisition and still one-way attack, being able to hit mobile targets, which is a challenge right now for things several hundred kilometers or 50 plus kilometers out.
Very good, very good. So if people are not going, well, if they're going to Farnborough, of course, look up these two gentlemen. But if they're not, how can they reach you? How can they find you? Ned, let's start with you and we'll end with Kirill.
www.macnd, so Mike Alpha Charlie November Delta.com. And you can reach me personally through LinkedIn. It's probably NED November Echo Delta Tabat, Tango Alpha Bravo Alpha Tango at macnd.com.
All right,
Or
perfect. Kitty, I'm sorry, go ahead.
LinkedIn, Ned Tabat.
Perfect. Kirill, how can people find you?
LinkedIn, you can search online and find my multiple sites, multiple companies. Geneaero.com is a website over Genesis Aeronautica, and always welcome any kind of collaboration, and hope to hear from you.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. This was quite a whirlwind understanding everything that you guys are doing. It's very exciting. And for people out there, again, they're looking for partners, they're looking for stakeholders, and, they're looking to collaborate. So very exciting times indeed. Looking forward to seeing both of you in October at the UAS Summit this year. And in the meantime, everybody else, reach out. And that's all she wrote for today. We are out here.